It was supposed to be a peaceful flight, just another business trip on a calm Friday morning. But by the time the plane landed, half the passengers were in tears, the flight crew was under investigation, and the world was talking about one man's shocking story. His name was David Bryant, 38 years old, tall, calm, and dressed in a sharp navy blue suit. He carried himself with quiet confidence, the kind that comes from years of hard work and success. He walked up to the gate, first-class boarding pass in hand. But within minutes, that calm morning turned into chaos. The crew whispered. The gate agent frowned. And before he even knew what was happening, an announcement crackled over the intercom. Security to gate C-17. All eyes turned. David froze. He hadn't argued. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't done anything. Yet, somehow, he was being treated like a criminal, right there in front of dozens of people. What the crew didn't realize was that David wasn't just any passenger. And when the truth finally came out, when he handed them his ID, it left everyone stunned silent. The same man they'd accused of suspicious behavior turned out to be someone whose name carried more power than they could have imagined. Stay until the end, because this story isn't just about humiliation or injustice. It's about karma, accountability, and the day an airline crew learned a painful lesson about judging someone by the color of their skin instead of the content of their character. What happened next would change everything, for them, and for David. The morning sun shimmered over Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport as David Bryant wheeled his carry-on toward gate C-17. It was early, 6:45 a.m., and he was flying to Washington, D.C. for a government meeting. Dressed neatly in a tailored suit, David looked like any other professional traveler. But beneath that calm exterior was a man with one of the highest security clearances in the country, a federal judge. Most people didn't recognize him outside of courtrooms or news segments. He preferred it that way. He handed his boarding pass to the gate agent, a young woman with a tight smile. She scanned it, frowned slightly, then looked him up and down. Sir, are you sure this is your ticket?" David raised an eyebrow. "Yes." "Why?" "Well," she hesitated. "This is for first class." He nodded. "I'm aware." She blinked, clearly unsure how to respond. "Oh, right. I'll check again." Behind him, a few passengers were watching. One whispered, "He must have printed the wrong ticket." Another chuckled, "Probably trying his luck." David said nothing. He'd heard those whispers before, far too many times. After a few seconds, the gate agent returned the boarding pass. "You can board." "Thank you," David said simply, walking toward the jet bridge. But as he entered the cabin, he noticed something odd. A flight attendant, Rebecca, gave him a quick once-over before forcing a polite smile. "Welcome aboard, sir. Can I see your boarding pass one more time?" David hesitated. "You just scanned it at the gate." "Of course, I just need to confirm your seat number." She glanced at it, frowned again, and said, "Oh, C2A. Right." He sat down quietly. But even as he buckled his seatbelt, he could feel eyes on him. A man 2 rows back muttered to his wife, "First class isn't what it used to be." Rebecca walked past him again, slowly, as if making sure he belonged there. She paused, then said softly, "Sir, this section is reserved for our premium travelers." David looked up calmly. "And?" "Well," she continued, "sometimes people get upgraded by mistake. I just want to make sure." He interrupted her gently. "Rebecca, right?" Her eyes widened. "Yes. Please don't embarrass yourself further. I belong here." Her expression hardened. "I'm just doing my job." "I'm sure you are," he replied evenly. "But your tone says otherwise." She walked away without responding, but he could hear her muttering to another attendant, Josh, at the galley. Minutes later, Josh approached David. "Sir, I'm afraid we'll need to verify your ticket again." David exhaled slowly, visibly annoyed but still composed. "You're the third person to check it." "Why?" Josh crossed his arms. Because your behavior is making some passengers uncomfortable. David blinked. My behavior? You seem tense, Josh added. You're not making eye contact. You're acting suspicious. A few heads turned. Someone whispered, Suspicious? He's just sitting there. David's patience snapped. I'm sitting quietly in my seat. What exactly is suspicious about that? Rebecca joined in. Sir, if you're going to be aggressive. Aggressive? David repeated, incredulous. You've questioned me 4 times about my seat, and I haven't raised my voice once. At that moment, Rebecca stepped back and quietly said into her radio, Captain, we have a situation in first class. Passenger refusing to cooperate. Requesting assistance. David's heart sank. Are you serious? Moments later, the captain came out of the cockpit. What's going on here? Rebecca spoke quickly. This passenger refuses to show ID and is being confrontational. David's jaw tightened. That's not true. The captain looked at him. Sir, do you have your ID? Of course, David said, reaching into his jacket. But before he could hand it over, the captain's radio crackled. Security is on the way to the gate. David froze. You called the police? Rebecca folded her arms. It's standard protocol when a passenger acts suspicious. I haven't done anything wrong, David said quietly. You just didn't believe I belonged here. By now, every passenger in first class was watching. Phones came out. The whispers grew louder. A few minutes later, 2 airport police officers boarded the plane. Sir, please step off the aircraft, one said. David looked at the captain, then back at the officers. I'll come peacefully. He stood up, straightened his suit, and walked out, calm, collected, every step echoing through the silent cabin. They led him into a small room near the gate, sterile, cold, quiet. One officer said, Sir, we received reports you were being confrontational with the crew. David sat down. Is calmly defending myself confrontational? The officer hesitated. We just need to verify your identity. David nodded. Of course. He reached into his briefcase and handed over his ID. The officer looked at it, then froze. His entire posture changed. Sir, are you? Yes, David said evenly. That's me. The officer looked at the other in disbelief. Judge David Bryant. Federal District Court? David nodded again. The room went silent. Outside, the captain and crew were waiting, still confident they'd done nothing wrong. But when the officers stepped out, their faces were pale. The senior officer said, Captain, you might want to apologize. Immediately. The captain frowned. What do you mean? You just removed a federal judge from your flight. Rebecca's jaw dropped. A judge? The officer turned to her. Not just any judge. He's on the Federal Civil Rights Court. Silence. Absolute silence. The captain quickly re-entered the room. Judge Bryant, I am deeply sorry. I didn't know. David held up a hand. You didn't need to know. You just needed to treat me with respect. The captain's voice trembled. It was a misunderstanding. David's eyes hardened. No. It was discrimination disguised as protocol. He stood, buttoning his jacket. I'll be filing a report with the airline and the Department of Transportation. I suggest you review your crew's training. As he walked back through the terminal, people stared, the same passengers who'd watched him be escorted off. Someone whispered, That's the judge? He stopped, turned slightly, and said quietly, Yes. The one who enforces the very laws that protect people from this kind of treatment. Within hours, the story hit social media. Passengers' videos went viral under the hashtag Judge Bicolor. News outlets exploded with headlines. Federal judge removed from flight in racial profiling incident. Airline apologizes after mistaking black passenger for threat. By evening, the airline's CEO reached out directly. Judge Bryant, we want to offer our sincerest apologies and full compensation. I don't want compensation, David interrupted. I want systemic reform. The CEO hesitated. Reform? Yes. Implicit bias training for every crew member. Mandatory cultural awareness programs. And public accountability. The CEO